There's no sound.
Yeah, my mic is on.
Okay.
Commissioner
so you
Linebaugh
just
cannot
came
hear
on.
us now.
Yes.
Commissioner
you just
Linebaugh,
came
can you
on.
hear us now?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so let's get started again. I guess there was no sound when I got started. We called the meeting of September 11th of the operations meeting. We called it to order at 9:30 a.m. We also did the approval of the minutes. There were no additions or corrections to the minutes, so they stand approved as presented. And I also had indicated that Commissioner Linebaugh was joining us online. We'll now have the public comment notice, and I will ask Julian to read the public comment notice for us.
Thank you, Commissioner. Public comment will be accepted in person and through the Q&A function. Please include your first name, last name, and municipality for all comments. Any comments without name and municipality will not be considered. Each citizen can submit one comment. Comment length is dictated by limitations of the platform being used. In-person comments will be accepted first, followed by comments submitted virtually. The meeting comment period is limited to a total of 30 minutes, including both in-person and virtual comments. This time period may be extended at the county's discretion. Please be concise. Comments that are germane to the county business will be read during the meeting and should not be considered to be interactive dialogue. The county shall be the final arbiter of whether the comment is germane and should be read. Any response to public comment will be done at the county's discretion.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any public comment on agenda items? Anything in person or anything online? Nothing. Okay, so we will move forward with the first presentation, which will be done by Laura Jones, the Deputy Director of Budget and Finance, and she will be presenting us with the quarterly fiscal update. Laura.
Thank you, Commissioner. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today, I'll be providing a financial update for January through June of 2024. We always begin our fiscal update presentations with a look back to where we started. In December, the board adopted our 2024 budget, which contains an all funds deficit of 46.2 million and a general fund deficit of 53.7 million. After adjusting the general fund for planned use of fund balance for capital, community payments, and Imagine Berks, and removing the effect of other funds, our general fund had a zero deficit or surplus for 2024, which was the result of a tax increase. So how are we progressing for 2024?
I'm sorry, can we get the PowerPoint up on the screen? For the presentation.
Is it not shared? Let me try again. My apologies.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I didn't. I thought it was. Are you handling that, Laura?
I am.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, there we are. Perfect. Thank you.
There we go. We are here. So how are we progressing for 2024? For our progress check, we look to our cash projection and tracking analysis. This allows us to take a look at real-time, year-to-date transactions for favorable and unfavorable results. Year-to-date, we have a favorable cash variance of $1.42 million. Cumulatively through June, we had projected a cash balance of $279.7 million, and how we actually did was an ending cash balance of $281.1 million. And so what's in that number? When we look at just cash receipts, we missed our projection value by $7.8 million, resulting in an unfavorable variance. But when we look at our cash disbursements, we did better than our projection by $9.2 million cumulatively. And so when we add our favorable $9.2 million disbursements variance to our $7.8 million unfavorable receipts variance, this results in the total $1.4 million favorable variance. And so let's review some of the highlights. For our total receipts, the $7.8 million unfavorable variance, we have a permanent unfavorable variance for Berks. We saw unfavorable variances in MA and IGT. Due to the daily rate that was utilized for our projection, it was greater than the actual rate approved for 2024. The 2024 approved rate decreased by 10% in comparison to our 2023 rate. Therefore, this variance will continue to grow through 2024. This unfavorable variance is partially offset by a favorable variance in private pay. Overall, our facility census numbers have been steady, around 310 to 315 residents in 2024. However, our budget and cash projection include an increase to 340 residents by year end. Our current census as of Sunday, September 1st, was 311, and this overall unfavorable variance increases to $3.5 million in July. For CYS and JPO Act 148 funds, we have an unfavorable timing variance. This variance is due to a lower than anticipated Q4 advance. The state changed the way they were making payments, and instead of providing 1 quarter advance installments for the Q4 advance, they sent us half of that value. And so we do expect to see those funds before the end of the year. Communication center reimbursement to the general fund. This unfavorable timing variance is resulting from the first quarter reimbursement to the general fund was projected to be received in May, but it wasn't received until July. The real estate taxes current year. This $1.6 million unfavorable variance is timing. It could be indicative of a slower economy, higher inflation, and slower payments from our taxpayers. This could also result in an increase to tax claim receipts, but we have not seen that increase yet. We do see this unfavorable variance decrease in July, so we'll be looking at this through year end. Community corrections. This $1.4 million favorable variance is permanent. This is the insurance reimbursement for the property damage that had occurred at the prior CRC building. It was unknown during the time of our projections when this would be received and for how much. Supervision fees reimbursement. This variance is resulting from the 2023 Q4 reimbursement to the general fund. We had projected to receive this in May, and we did not receive it until July, resulting in our unfavorable timing variance through June. Interest receipts. This is music to our ears. This $0.7 million favorable variance is permanent. We are earning higher than anticipated interest revenue due to our positive cash flow month after month, resulting in higher interest payments. District attorney receipts. This is a permanent favorable variance resulting from unanticipated grant funds, predominantly from the gun violence investigation grant. And aging well grant. This is a favorable timing variance. This is due to an extra 4 months of aging well receipts received through May. This projection included 5 months of receipts. However, 9 months have been received so far in 2024. The receipts were very, very delayed in 2023. And so now through June, we've received July 2023 through March 2024. So this timing variance will grow.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the cash, the one we just went through. Total receipts, 7.8 million unfavorable. That means that the projections we projected more than we took in. Basically unfavorable, favorable. Okay, so this is through June. Is looking at past years, is this normal for 6 months? Will things get better, worse, as we look back at how receipts were taken from previous years?
That's a great question. Each year we do updated projections and the actuals could change. So rather than compare it to where we were this time last year, it's better to kind of look at each individual category and look at how we'll probably do through year end. And then that will help us with our total results for 2024.
Okay. Because I look at real estates, we collected 1.6 less, but I'm just, maybe people are paying later in the year kind of thing. I don't know. I'm
Right,
just,
and we hypothesize that that might be from inflation,
Okay.
slower payments from our tax base. But what we see is usually we do have, and with collecting taxes, we could have an unfavorable variance in the first half of the year, and then it turns around before year end. And then we end up with higher tax revenue than we had budgeted. So it's sort of yet to be determined. We do keep an eye on that and we adjust for it. So if we estimate too high in our budget for 2024, we recalibrate and adjust for what will be our 2025 budget number.
So I guess it'd be fair to say that the unfavorable, with the exception of the Heim, is a timing matter. So we know some of them already came in July, but this is through June. But so the real unfavorable would be the Heim, because it's not necessarily a timing issue, but more of an issue of less reimbursement than what we were expecting, and a lower census as well than what we had budgeted for as well. Knowing that that census is not because there isn't a need, but
Right.
because of the staffing levels that we have. And now in July, there was an increase in the hours that nurses have to dedicate to each person there. So then that lowers the amount of people that we can have based on the amount of staffing that we have. So the high may or may not turn around this year. The others are more timing wise.
Right, and particularly for that variance, we're kind of looking at the MA rate and the IGT rate were lower. So how that carries through the year is a larger variance than how we're doing better on our private pay. And you're right, the census then being lower than we anticipated adds to the overall variance. But that's the one that's permanent, as well as community corrections. The community corrections value won't lend to the bottom line because there is offsetting expense that will accompany that revenue source. Berks Heim, just because we're behind 3.4 million as an unfavorable variance, that won't necessarily translate into a deficit for the operation, because along with having less residents comes less operating expense to accompany that. So it's a little too early to tell where we might land for 2024.
Okay, thank you.
And so for total cash disbursements, we have a $9.2 million favorable variance. And some of those highlights include capital projects. That's a favorable variance timing. We have slower than anticipated projects, progress and or payments. Most notable projects are the vehicle replacements countywide, comm center workstation replacements, the prison parking lot pavement project, the county security project, and Whirlpool tubs replacement at Berks Heim. So we would anticipate those projects be spent before year end. Community payments in Imagine Berks, this is a $1.7 million favorable timing variance. This reflects $1 million in community payments and $682,000 in Imagine Berks implementation funding that's been projected through June but not yet dispersed. And we do expect this to reverse before year end. Payroll and FICA disbursements, this $1.6 million total favorable variance, we believe is due to the labor shortage, our difficulty in hiring, and therefore higher vacancies. Some of the departments most affected are information systems, the public defenders, courts, parks, CYS, and domestic relations. This is offset by higher than anticipated overtime in JPO and the sheriff's office, and also the addition of the youth shelter positions that were not included in our original projection. And this favorable variance would be lower if the Teamsters contract was final. We had included an annual increase in our 24 budget and our cash projection, but that contract is not yet final. Employee benefits. This is a permanent favorable variance. This variance includes healthcare costs of $677,000 and unemployment benefits of $61,000. This favorable variance could be reduced in future months, though, if the higher RX trend continues. Juvenile probation disbursements. This is an unfavorable permanent variance. It's resulting from higher than anticipated placements expense. JPO experienced a significant volume increase in days of care for their children in placements, and we do expect to see this variance increase through year end. This is good news here. This Coca County contribution, this is a favorable permanent variance. This is resulting from unspent state MH funds that, with being unspent, could have been returned to the state. And those funds have been reallocated to be paid directly to Coca, which is decreasing the funding contribution anticipated to be made from the county's general fund. So that was looking ahead and forecasting and repurposing those funds, allowing to minimize the general fund expense. So that was good work. The pension ADC payment, this is a favorable timing variance. Initially, through the beginning of the year, the payments made for the pension had reflected the estimated amount based on our prior year payment. The actual pension payment, which was made known in June, was higher than we anticipated and will be reflected in our future payments through year end, ultimately causing this now favorable variance to become unfavorable before year end. Aging disbursements, this is a favorable timing variance. The projection was based on the available allocation and historical timing. However, the actual disbursements can vary. Utilities, this is a favorable timing variance. This variance relates to electricity disbursements and natural gas disbursements, which is resulting from favorable weather conditions so far this year. And we also have some savings due to our former BCRC building being underutilized during the first half of the year. And then the last one is other. This variance includes multiple accounts, such as tax refunds, the Veterans Affairs expense is lower, and Recorder of Deeds expense is lower, as well as numerous other accounts. And so I'll pause there. Do you have any questions on the disbursements?
With the others, is that timing or is that permanent?
So it's timing. Well,
Timing.
it could be a little bit of everything
little-
because there's multiple things included in that one.
Okay.
But for tax refunds, that would be timing. The Veterans Affairs expense and the Recorder Deeds expense, based on our analysis and the particular expense lines that those have the variance in, those are permanent.
Okay.
Mhm. And so receipts and disbursements combined to a total of $1.4 million favorable variance through June. We'll continue to monitor our cash projection, and our next update will be a look at 2025 as we will meet to discuss the 2025 proposed budget. Thank you for your attention. And does anyone have any additional questions?
I have no additional questions. I just appreciate the update and nice work. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have no questions either. Appreciate the update. Like the format, very simple to understand, the highlights. You don't need to get into all the details. So it's one, I think it's good for us, but it's also good for the people that are watching and for the county to understand, for the people in the county to understand where the county is at financially on a quarterly basis. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So that ends our budget and finance presentation with the fiscal update. Thank you, Laura, you and Bob and the team always do a great job. Appreciate it. Okay, next up we have the presentation on the Berks County Digital Equity Coalition. We have Pat Giles, Dave Myers, and Dr. Anna White with the Why Missing Foundation, and they will be giving the update. So once we get started, I see Dr. White's pointing to Pat, but it's Dave that's going, okay.
Pointing to
So Dave drew the short straw.
Oh, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, I will. First, I'm going to, Commissioner Rivera, Commissioner Linebuck, hope your recovery is going well. Commissioner Santoni, thank you for having us here. There with me are Pat Giles from the Why I'm Missing Foundation, Bronwyn Gamble, who had been the head of the Reading Public Library, Anna Whites, who's working with the Wyomissing Foundation and Valley Heart Tech. They are a part of our team. You're going to learn more about the whole team. We're here today to give you an update on a significant investment that the county made in digital navigation, digital equity, trying to address the issues that became apparent during COVID when people had to move to working remotely. School districts in particular had significant problems. I know the Reading School District, 25% of the students didn't have access to a computer, to the internet, the technology, or the training necessary. So it became very evident that this is a very important infrastructure part of our economy and part of our neighborhood. So the Wyomissing Foundation organized two committees. One was to deal with digital literacy, and the other one was expanded internet access. And the county, along with the United Way, Wyomissing Foundation, and the Berks Alliance, funded a study by an organization called Lit Communities. And that study highlighted the fact that there were significant areas in Berks County that did not have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. And it also underscored the need for access to equipment and the skills necessary to use that equipment. Most of the northern tier of the county had problems, limited options for 100 to 10 megabit service. They did a survey, 2,500 people responded to the survey. Of them, over 2,000 took a speed test, and the speed test showed that 68% of the county had either no reliable access service or very limited, less than the minimum speeds. And we want to highlight that that survey was done both in English and Spanish, so it was pretty open and diverse.
Dave, 68% of the county
68% of the people responding to the
Okay.
survey.
had had service or speeds of less than
Right.
what was necessary.
And it was spread across the county. So it was interesting. What it highlighted before this, the Federal Communications Commission had determined access to internet service being one property within a census tract had access to the 100 over 10. That became very evident. That was not the issue here in Berks County. There were places where there was just, there were people not able to access for a lot of different reasons. So based on that report, the commissioners did significant funding that I think has led Berks County to be identified as a statewide leader in trying to address this challenge. They committed $5.7 million for the technical expansion part and $600,000 to support two-year digital literacy projects. The technical committee has met with 9 internet service providers. Only one of them has applied for and received funding from the State Broadband Authority. But we're exploring a whole series of other options, and they're sort of listed there, partnering with a service provider to address on some of the unserved areas, develop a middle mile option, use the county-owned towers to try to extend access to cell service that could be used, or provide funding to every library and municipal building. Derek Harris from the county has been actively involved in helping coordinate, and I think we have a meeting set up next week for the technical committee. Meanwhile, the funding for the digital literacy programs were used to provide support for 3 initiatives in the county. One was the Berks County Intermediate Unit, which did a digital navigators service provider in the Hamburg area, working particularly with the Hamburg School District and the Hamburg Public Library. The Berks County Community Health Center expanded its blood pressure monitoring system for people with blood pressure issues. And Connections Work has hired a digital navigator to assist justice-involved clients to gain digital skills. So the county $600,000 was used to fund those 3 initiatives. In addition, the Reading Public Library got money through the city ARPA funding to do a bilingual digital navigator in the libraries, mostly focusing on senior citizens in the county, in the city, And Berks Tech Centro received funding from the Department of Labor and Industry to provide a standalone digital literacy program for its clients. So the results of the Digital Navigator investments, do you want to do this part? I'm going to call on Bronwyn to do this because she collected all the data.
Don't need that. So I'm just, you can look at the data and after a while, it just looks like numbers, but I think some stories really give the impact. So one is from the Berks Community Health Center, which used 251 plus thousand from your 600,000 digital literacy grant. So what they have found is they have a digital, they call her a nurse navigator, and he works with patients and their blood pressure equipment and a smartphone app so that clients can take their own blood pressure. It gets uploaded to Berks Community Health and they can work with them without the patient having to come into the office. So that eliminates some of the transportation issues. They can stay at home. So most patients with smartphones pick up the app fairly quickly to use with the blood pressure monitor. Some have to practice more than others, but we allow them as much time as they need to practice with the app before going home and doing it on their own. The biggest limiting factor is when patients don't have a smartphone or if they don't know their passwords, they don't know how to download an app, or it is a skill they don't possess. They provide patients with all the training they need. They have patients well into their 80s who are doing this successfully. And if language is a barrier, they help them to switch the settings on their phone to make it more accessible. So Jose, first seen in July of this year, had a blood pressure of 176 over 102. Through working with this project, as of September 1st, his blood pressure is now at his goal. And he said that he is so happy, he was literally dancing with joy. Connections Work was our third project. They kind of got the almost $50,000 that was still remaining. They talk about Scott, who was 72, who has attended their workshops and despite initially expressing apprehension, is now searching for jobs using email, and has shared comments like, I didn't know I could learn this again at my age. I feel worthy again, and really reflects a sense of personal fulfillment. So thank you for your support for digital navigation in Berks County.
And I apologize, I got a little ahead of myself here. You'll see on the screen some additional information about some of the successes that we've had. The Reading Public Library has had 67 patrons who are receiving literacy services. Most of them are older adults. The BCIU project in the Hamburg Public Library has had 7 people go through the digital literacy program. 45, all of them were over 45. And as Raman mentioned, Connections Works had 13 who've received digital literacy programs. So this initiative has been beginning to have an impact significantly here in Berks County. And this is where I got ahead of myself. So the group has created a digital equity plan for Berks County, addressing these 3 particular areas: digital divide, the gap between those who have affordable access, skills, and support to use the online service; digital equity, where residents have an equal opportunity to have that capacity, to have that technology; and digital inclusion, which results from intentional activities necessary to ensure that all people have access. The plan has 3 essential elements to it: the goal that everybody should have equal access. So access is important. affordability is important. In adoption, being able to use the equipment is important. The state and federal programs, and the state and federal government both have identified digital navigators as an important issue, have identified these different population groups: older adults, justice impacted, rural communities, low income households, language barriers, racial and ethnic minorities, veterans, and individuals with disabilities. But our coalition went beyond this. Those are important categories. We've also identified as important categories people needing service in Berks County being people with chronic illnesses and people with behavioral health challenges. And so those are the targets that we're encouraging people to apply to provide digital navigation services in Berks County. And what we do is, here are our basic goals. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit here. Connectivity, the devices, making sure people can use it safely and securely, that we have an inclusive ecosystem that everybody has access to, and giving people the training, workforce, and education they need necessary to make use of it. The plan emphasizes the digital navigators. And this is just an example of one of the plans that's working, is Connections Works. There is a significant amount of state and federal money that's available. There's organizations that are working on both the state and national level on this. It's become a very targeted area. The state has opened a window for digital navigator funding, and we'll talk about that in a second. There's going to be additional funding that will be available. There's groups like Kimber that are trying to do a statewide program. All of them have been attracted quite candidly to Berks County because of the investment that the county made in the digital navigation system. So far, the coalition has issued 5 letters to the state broadband authority about 5 applications that came to them, saying that they are consistent with the plan and we recommend that they be approved. The Latino Workforce Tech Centro, Connections Work, the Goggle Works, the Literacy Council, and the Reading Public Library. So they've all applied. We're hopeful that they will all be receiving notification of funding sometime in the next several weeks. This is, when I mentioned the coalition, I thought it'd be important to tell you who the coalition is, and you'll see it's a fairly significant list of organizations in Berks County that have been actively involved in this process. And we do have a website that's available for you to get information. So open it up to questions, but let me say before we do that, that the investment the county made has been very significant in making the progress that we've seen so far in Berks County that will be continuing. But it has also sent a statement to the rest of Pennsylvania that Berks County sees this as an important issue. And that investment is very, very significant and important. We thank you again for doing that. So any questions or comments?
Yeah. No comments, but I want to thank you, Dave. When reality is, when we look at it today, the internet and being connected online is just as important as gas and electric, because it deals with your medical, with your school, with your work, with staying in touch with family. So it's a lot of I think most of the things that you do nowadays, you have to have some type of connectivity. If not, you stay behind. So it's extremely important that the work you're doing. So I really appreciate it. Also, I think Pam is going to be sharing with the group a tool that Penn State Extension has. Did they share that already, or is it coming up now? Yeah, I was at the Ag Progress Days and saw a tool that Penn State Extension has around determining where there's broadband, where there isn't, how you can connect different clusters and so forth. So I think that tool would be very helpful when you talk about that connectivity issue and making sure that everyone has access to broadband. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have looked at that tool, and that's been also instrumental in helping develop the plan that we have come up with. Commissioner Santoni.
I just want to commend you as well. I know the digital divide is important, and your work is going to help narrow that. The only question is state and federal dollars, lots of significant dollars available for this and we're tapping into them.
Yes, there's a lot of money that's available. It's gonna be coming in pools. The state broadband grant, I think, was in the order of what, $80 million that they were doing statewide, something like that.
For devices.
Yeah, yeah, Bronwyn.
The Pennsylvania Broadband Development Authority just will release funding for devices, laptops in particular. 5 of the agencies that were listed just recently applied for those funds. The word I got last week is that most of the entities that applied will receive their funding or will actually receive the devices, and that they will do a second round in early 2025. So those devices should be coming to Berks County by the end of the year. And then the federal funding from the National Telecommunications and Infrastructure Authority, Information Authority, is being released probably early 2025. And there are several entities in Pennsylvania applying, one of whom is working here in Berks County trying to get community partners.
And I should mention that this another round of state funding that's going to be available and some federal funding as well is to train the trainers, to teach people, to teach other people how to be digital navigators. And we have a couple organizations in Berks County, the Connections Work and Literacy Council, that are thinking about creating a initiative, a proposal to attract some of that funding as well. So we become sort of a model.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add your comment about all the federal and state funding that will be coming forward. Part of our role as the coalition is to make local community partners aware of those opportunities. We're not in a position to control who gets the money, but we certainly have the opportunity to make sure that those who are eligible to apply know of those funding opportunities. So our website has that information posted, and we help to communicate that out to as broad a group of community partners as possible.
Thank you.
Any other questions for us? Good. Well, thank you again, because this investment has been significant for Berks County and has sent the message to the rest of Pennsylvania that we really understand and appreciate the importance of this issue.
Yeah, thank you for the work you do. Okay, so I had some great presentations today, a lot of information shared. So thank you to all the presenters for being here today and sharing this valuable information. Do we have any public comment for our meeting today? Anything online or in person? Nothing online, nothing in person either. Okay, so that would conclude our meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we adjourn.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.